Hello, everyone, and welcome to the FamVestor Podcast. I'm your host, Sonny Burns.
And I'm your co-host, Sunmarie Burns.
Today we have a great episode for you. We talk about someone who's lived through 3 recessions now. He's been retired for 20 years, which is awesome. You never get to talk to those people. And so we see, has he been able to safely be financially independent at the 4% withdrawal rate? And what's extra special is we had his daughter on the show. And so we see how he raised his daughter. They're writing a book about creating money savvy families and teaching multi-generations of families through just teaching about personal finance and the importance of really being disciplined with your money habits and life habits.
Right. It was a great first for us having a father-daughter team. Most of the time we have husband-wife duos, but this is a father-daughter team really branching into multi-generational wealth and knowledge, passing on what you know to your children. How do you do that? What does that look like? And how can that impact their lives?
Yeah, they definitely shared some tips of like how they raised her and things that I definitely want to incorporate in our own son, how we're raising him, because they were like, oh, I see that red flag that we already hit, and this is how they made it successful, and right. Definitely something that I want to incorporate into our lives. So it's a really cool, powerful podcast. Definitely recommend it.
A lot of practical advice, and a lot of great insight for, investing and savings so that you can retire at an earlier age than most.
Yeah. So definitely listen to the show. Another cool thing that happened this week, where it's currently April 8th. It was our eldest's 5th birthday. So the night before, I took him camping, him and his younger brother, and we had a great camp out. A lot of us are stuck at home and social distancing. This is the coronavirus time period. And so I was like, hey, let's go out there. It's great weather, mid-60s. Let's go camping. So, if you've never taken your child camping, this might be a great opportunity to take them for a weekend, or even, just take a weekday off from working from home and take your child out camping. And I put a post in the FamVestor Facebook group, and I was like, hashtag 6 miles apart. Right. And because, we didn't see anyone hiking in or hiking out, and we just had a great time, frying up hot dogs and chicken nuggets and just enjoying a night under the stars.
Right.
Yeah, so definitely a great activity to do with your little ones and a great family experience. So without further ado, let's get to the show.
You're listening to the FamVestor Podcast. If you're looking to raise your family with intention, gain financial independence, and live a life of true freedom, you're in the right place. Join us as we explore together how to create thriving families, because strong families are the cornerstone for a world at peace.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the FamVestor Podcast. I'm your host, Sonny Burns.
And I'm your co-host, Sunmarie Burns.
So today, I'm very excited. We have 2 special guests on the show. This is the first time that we are having a multi-generational show, father-daughter team. We have Doug Nordman, who served 20 years active duty in the Navy submarine force. He retired in 2002, almost 20 years now, at the age of 41 years old. His wife was also a reservist in the military, and they both kept a very high savings rate, and they've lived in Hawaii for the last 30 years. He's an author of several books and of the wildly popular themilitaryguide.com, which has had over 1 million views. He's offered over 1,000 posts in the last decade, which is insane to me. And today also joining us is Carol Pittner, who kind of followed a similar path. She's also a reservist, and she's been stationed all around the world, married to an active duty spouse. They just had their first daughter, and now Doug is a grandpa. I think he's known as Grand Doug now. Anyway, really cool stuff. They're writing a book together, which is awesome, Raising Your Money Savvy Family for Next Generation Financial Independence. So it's perfect along our themes of family, finance, and freedom. So we're so excited to have Doug and Carol on the show. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I really enjoyed listening to John Lanza's episode on the art of allowance.
Nice. Yeah, that was definitely a cool episode. I know you guys have your own allowance story, and we can ask, Carol, was it a good story? Did it work out? Was that a mistake? And that's kind of where I want to dig in, and it's such a cool thing we have today, where we have this multi-generational thing. And so I kind of wanted to start out, we always like to kind of dig into the beginning. And I think I would just want to ask Carol, what was it like growing up, and how much did your family teach you about money? And I know, Doug retired when you were 9 years old. So how was that, having him there, a full-time dad at home? And anyway, how is it like, specifically towards kind of money and growing up?
So having dad at home was actually wonderful. One of the big things for me as a kid, because both of my parents were active duty, they had really crazy hours at work. And so we would wake up early in the morning. I would have to be at the preschool, the before school program from 6:45 in the morning until school started at 8. And then I would be in the after school program, which was whenever school ended all the way up to 4:45.
Wow.
And so the first thing that was nice was when dad was done working and he had retired, I got to be home. Didn't have to be at school until 7:58 in the morning.
That's a big deal for a kid, for sure.
Oh, yeah. And then when it came to money, I learned a lot about money, but it wasn't apparent when I was a kid. When I was in elementary school, it was kind of sort of a thing in the background, just as everybody is starting new sports and starting new extracurricular activities. And it wasn't really until late middle school, early high school that it became apparent how big of a divide there was between my financial education and everybody else's. And the only thing that made it apparent was when you started talking about money really for the first time in middle school and high school. If you took a home economics class, for example, there's a whole section where they talk to you about, balancing a checkbook and balancing a budget, but most kids have never seen that before.
Right.
And then by the time you get to high school, it's, hey, what kind of job do you want in the future? What kind of salary are you going to be making? How are you going to be able to afford a living on that salary? But until then, there's not much.
Right.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I don't know, how did seeing your dad being at home, did that affect you as well? And did that change your plans kind of growing up, like of what you wanted to do? And
the concept
I feel like,
of early retirement and
I feel like
financial independence, because I feel like the majority of people don't grow up with that mentality.
They grow up like we need to get a job and we're going to work for the rest of our lives.
Right.
And it's just this work mindset.
And you got a unique perspective there.
That was my perspective when I was growing up.
Exactly. And I started with the same perspective. I started off with, I got to get a job. And the main reason I had to get a job was so that I could retire. It wasn't so much to work for the rest of my life. It was like the sooner that I got a job and the sooner I had a steady paycheck and saved up that money, the sooner I could get out of that job. And the sooner I could, at the time, Dad and I were both learning how to surf and we were just starting to get into it. So I would go to the school bus stop, which happens to be on a very busy corner, and it was the only corner to leave our neighborhood. So every morning, I would walk to the bus stop with my friends, and I would park at the bus stop. We'd be sitting there twiddling our thumbs, waiting for the bus. And here comes Dad along with the surfmobile. He stops right at the stop sign. Hey, have fun at school. And I'm just like, I need to get a job. I need to get good grades. I need to get a job so I can get out there and I can go surfing.
Nice.
I wanted to give her some internal motivation.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
And, I'm sure all the listeners are curious. You're a military family, and I feel like most, people don't associate military with high dollar earning potential, but you were able to retire in your 40s. Can you just give us a quick synopsis of how that happened?
Oh, it's all based on a high savings rate. You're absolutely right that service members, military families are not high-earning families. We're paid well enough. The criteria is whatever makes people stick around for retention. The goal of the Department of Defense is that whatever your job is in the military, you're earning at least 90% of what you get as a civilian. So we try to make it a good income, commensurate with your training. But it's all about the savings rate. And so in the submarine force, I was pretty good at a frugal lifestyle. And my spouse and I were stationed overseas in the 80s and 90s for some of our tours. And when you're overseas, you don't have all the commercial consumer comforts that you're accustomed to growing up in the US. And so frugality is kind of a lifestyle that you take on as a challenge. Everybody worries that financial independence means deprivation, right? You're dumpster diving for your food, you're recycling your toilet paper, you're walking everywhere, you never have any fun. But the reality is frugality for us was something that we did was challenging and fulfilling and kind of enjoyable.
Yeah, we can definitely relate to that.
Yeah, keep your expenses low and keep raising your income every chance you get. Every time you can get qualified or get promoted, you put most of that promotion pay raise into saving and investments. So we did that with a high savings rate of roughly 40% over the 2 decades that I was on active duty.
Wow.
And in retrospect, that got us to financial independence in 1999. And the joke is that everybody on the internet was financially independent in late 1999. But it was enough for the 4% safe withdrawal rate, having assets of 25 times your annual expenses. And we didn't know about the 4% safe withdrawal rate in 1999, and life was pretty good when I was in my final tour of active duty. So we stayed there, and I retired in 2002. We've kept withdrawing from our investments at the 4% safe withdrawal rate over the last 18 years. And our expenses have stayed fairly flat, maybe a little less than inflation. But of course, our portfolio, our investments have grown faster than inflation. So today, our withdrawal rate has dropped lower than 4%. This portfolio is going to last the rest of our life.
Wow,
That's
that's
awesome.
fantastic.
Can you just practically explain what 4% meant to you at retirement? Like, I'm assuming you had this nest egg in your retirement and you withdrew 4% of whatever that nest egg was. So, like, if you had $1 million, let's say, you could 4% of that would have been $40,000 a year. You could have safely withdrawn. Is that correct?
Exactly. That's all the research and the computer simulations. And the assumption is that you start out at retirement withdrawing 4%, so that $40,000. And then every year after that, you just raise that with inflation. You don't even have to look at your investment portfolio. You just assume that you're going to be good for 30 years. There's a very high probability of success that every year in your financial independence, you can raise the next year's withdrawals by the rate of inflation.
Yeah.
And it turns out that works pretty good. There are a couple of failures, and those failures are the worst cases. And the reality is that you actually do look at your investments more often than that. And you're also going to optimize your spending. So we all start out at a 4% safe withdrawal rate. We all talk about that tripwire for deciding when you're financially independent. But then as you go through your actual lifestyle and financial independence, you're going to optimize your spending. You're going to, find the things you enjoy doing. You're going to do most of that, and you're going to get very good at spending the money on however you want to spend that money. And so your expenses are not going to go up every year with the rate of inflation. And you don't have to withdraw that extra money every year that you're in financial independence.
Right.
Plus, your portfolio is probably going to grow faster. There's an 80% chance when you do the 4% safe withdrawal rate that you'll have more money than you need.
Right.
And out of that 80% chance, 10% of the time, you have a lot more. And so the lifestyle works, the math works, the simulation works. The worst case, like this current recession, the worst case is that you change your spending a little bit, just cut back on your spending a little bit, or any of another bunch of types of withdrawal adjustments for a year or two. And we're saving a lot of money this month, right? Because we can't go anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
We were just talking about that yesterday. We're like, we're doing pretty good. There's nothing to spend money on.
This wasn't my idea, but I still do manage to get surfing, and so life is still pretty good. But we are doing quite well on expenses, unfortunately.
What I find fascinating is that you are a real life case study, because this gets thrown around all the time, but you are living it. The last 20 years, almost 20 years, you've been retired essentially, and you've been living off this 4%. And like you said, it's been growing. I think I read one of your blog posts recently where you said your portfolio has grown almost 2.7 times or 270% from when you retired, which I think a lot of people are concerned. You have this nest egg, but you're pulling it. But the safe withdrawal rate, it should continue to grow because you're not taking those, you're taking 4%, and, on average, maybe it'll go 7-8% if on average. And so that's a cool thing to know that you've been living off this. And I know people are like, oh, well, he has a successful blog, but you also donate all your writing contributions and any money you get to military donations and charities. So, that's so awesome that, this real life case study and the opportunity to have you in an interview here. I was just fascinated. So that's awesome.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, the money that I spend for my lifestyle does not come from the blog. All that money just goes to military friendly charities.
Yeah, that's
which is
cool.
Wonderful. The fact that you're giving back is so
paying it forward, right? And making sure everybody else knows these tools and is able to start from the place where we finished from, pretty much from the knowledge level.
Right. Yeah, we love that. That's what we're all about here too on Famvestor, is just, sharing, making a community where we can share with each other how to optimize the best lifestyle possible.
So, Carol,
Absolutely.
I mean, there's so much discipline we're kind of talking about here. So many military people I know, like in my own family, I have cousins and stuff in the military, and they get these tremendous $40,000 sign-up bonuses, and right away they're buying themselves a Mustang, buying themselves a Corvette. And it's just like, but the discipline of, instead of buying these fancy luxuries, focusing and buying your freedom essentially 20 years from now, and the focus focus of that. Did you like just see that? You know, you saw your dad with a surfboard waving to you on the school bus. Did you see that freedom? You're like, I want that too. Or did you like rebel against it and were like, no, I want, the ease and comfort of life? How was it for you growing up? Did you rebel, or were you just like, this is the path that I also want to imitate?
Oh yeah, so I was certainly rebellious as a kid, because every kid is rebellious, and so we talk about it a lot in our book. There were some things that mom and dad tried that just did not work for me. One of the things dad would try to do is he would try to give me, some of the books that he read, some of the books that would probably help me understand money and why money was important and why saving was important, and I would never read the book. It would be on the bookshelf. And I would never read the book. And
I found that out. I found that out when we put in the manuscript and they started editing it.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, Dad. Yeah.
I gave you that to read. Never did.
I read it last week at least, but yeah, no. Uh-huh. But you're right about the bonuses. There was a period in my military career when I went to nuclear power school, and that's all of the folks who eventually run the naval reactors that are on submarines and aircraft carriers. And at that school, everybody in that school has some kind of bonus, because nuclear power school is academically one of the hardest programs in the military. And so sure enough, you see the different parking lots, and there's a truck line. I kid you not, there's a truck line of everybody that's got their F350s all, spruced up with the linings and the tires and the rims. Yeah. And then you have all of your Mustangs. So all the different kinds of Mustangs. The years that I was in, they had just released a new Camaro with all of the, what was the name of the Transformers movies? So they had the new Camaro models out. So you had a Camaro line. And so you could literally see where everybody's bonus was based on their parking spots.
Sitting in the parking lot.
Right.
And so that was a lot of people's motivations to make it through nuclear power school, was they can't give back their bonus. It's literally sitting out in the parking lot.
Right.
Got to pay for the car.
Right. And I feel like with the military, there's so many perks too, right? There's like housing allowances, so you can, and there's like food allowances too, so you can keep your expenses low, but it's having that discipline and having that the discipline to really do it, and just delaying that gratification.
Or even the forward thinking that you're going to save that money for something down the line that'll benefit your life more than the immediate flashy car.
Right.
Exactly.
The discipline skills work out really good for financial independence, but the other side of that is that you tend to have a short-term perspective. I'm in a dangerous job. I could lose my my health tomorrow. I could get killed tomorrow. I better live today. And so it's a yin and yang, push and pull on that.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And the other one is, hey, we've been at sea for a month, or we've been at sea for 3 months. We finally got a port call.
Right.
I've just been doing nothing but earning money. I got a little cash to spend. Let's spend it. And a little bit of drinking later. And the next thing you know.
Mm-hmm.
Party on.
So going back to when you were a child, and Doug, you chime in here too. What were some of the financial educational tools you gave your daughter? And Carol, what were some of the memories you have growing up of ways you learned about money, perhaps through allowances, perhaps through part-time jobs, or that sort of information? I'm curious to know, because anyone who has a child, it's on their mind. How am I going to teach my child to treat money responsibly and to think about their future?
So there were a couple of very distinct tools, and one of them, of course, is an allowance. A lot like was mentioned in John with Money Mammals, there's a lot of aspects of the allowance that you can play with as a family to make it ideal for your situation. Mm-hmm. And for me, we started with 3/4 a week when I was about 4 years old. And
3/4, okay.
3/4, 75
nice.
cents. And part of the reason we came up with that number was there was a pencil vending machine in the library at my elementary school. And each one of those pencils costs 1/4. So I could have up to 3 pencils a week.
Whoa.
And it was, it was making choices. It was making decisions about your money at a very early age. Now I could wait until next week, in which I can get 6 pencils, or I could just spend the money and only get 3 pencils.
We're all laughing, but I'm sure it was truly a thrill for you to put in that quarter and get your newly minted pencil out.
Right.
And you couldn't see what pencil was going to come out. It's like a straw dispenser. So you just, you never knew it was going to, again, 4-year-old minds, right?
The joys of childhood.
Mm-hmm. But then there are other more subtle things, and these are what we call teachable moments. And they're not things that you can easily just plan out. One of the things that was an unexpected teachable moment was when I must have been maybe 2 or 3 years old, Dad. I can't remember. And it was at daycare when they had that cash machine. That was one of the toys that they had.
Yeah. About three and a half.
Right. And some daycare person made a comment about how I love playing with the money in that cash machine because it was just like the quarters that I would play with on Dad's desk. And so Mom and Dad bought a cash machine for me to have at home. And so I had my own plastic money at home to play with, as well as the stuff at preschool to work with.
Nice.
Awesome.
So you started earning an allowance in kindergarten. So this was before kindergarten where you were practicing with the plastic play money.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'd say that the word, I'd say we didn't use the word earning. You got an allowance for being a good member of the family.
Okay.
And you still had chores. Chores, you had to do that whether you got an allowance or not. But on the other side, you got an allowance whether or not you did your chores. There's no requirement to make some performance standard for the allowance. We just left it be a good member of the family. And the whole point is to give your kid enough money at that age so that they feel like they can do anything, but not enough so that they can buy everything.
Right.
And they have to make choices. And we've read books on the subject. In fact, one of the books that got mentioned on another episode you guys had was David Owen and the First National Bank of Dad. And he uses the analogy of lighting $20 bills on fire and running around like they're a 4th of July sparkler. And that's exactly what you get. Well, in Carol's case, pencils. Yeah. But that's exactly what you get at that age.
In our case, it's Hot Wheel cars from Walmart that never stop funneling in.
It's not a Hot Wheel car. It's all the cars.
All of that.
Did you want a garage for those cars? Yes.
Oh, absolutely. But the whole point is that they have teachable moments. They learn how they feel when they spend all their money and suddenly they're poor. They make all these mistakes with quarters when they're 4 and 5 and 10 and 15 years old, instead of making it with $10,000 student loans when they're in college, or without making mistakes with their 401k when they're working adults.
Right.
So there's going to be a lot of mistakes when they're young. And the idea is that they're making those mistakes in a safe place. They're at home, in the sandbox, in the family where people love them and can talk through it and help them understand.
From a practical perspective, I'm curious to know, with the allowance that you gave to Carol each week, was that something she kept in a wallet in her room and could take charge of bringing it out whenever you went to the store together? Or is that something that you kept in a bank that was designated as hers, and when she wanted to take it to spend, then you opened it up and allowed her to bring a certain amount? I'm curious how you handled the money handling in the home. Because we have this issue all the time.
Dad, if you'll get us
Should
started,
our son have the wallet or should we hold it?
So, Dad, if you'll get us started, I'll go grab the Hideaway Bank. It's actually like right in the kitchen over here.
Yeah. We started with a couple of things. First, we would have the money there for her. We would say, well, you have an allowance and your allowance balance in your Bank of Carol is $4 or whatever the number was. And so we would give her that money whenever she wanted. We would hold on to it for her if she wanted to be safe. As she got older, she had a bank that is called a Hideaway Bank. It was a book that teaches about money. I don't know if you've seen this before, but I can see she's coming back with it.
No, I never
and this bank allows you to put change into the bank, into this little thing that looks like a book, but it's kind of hidden away. There it is. So there's the money.
That's so cool.
So it looks like a book on your bookshelf. Kids wouldn't think to go steal your money from you, but then when you turn it around, and I'll point out that here's my adult daughter using the Hideaway Bank that she's had for well over 2 decades.
Nice.
And the book
Still
that came
today.
with the bank is actually faded as well. So there's a whole book that comes with it as well, and it's a very nice book. It's got a lot of good graphics and a lot of good cartoons in it as well. So it's one of those good elementary school resources to start with.
And that's
and I'd say
on all sorts of
first or
different
second
uses of
grade.
money. Nice.
Now, David Owen makes the point that he wants to motivate the kid to have an incentive to save their money, to invest their money, to do something with their own money, but it's got to be an internal incentive. And so instead of confiscating their allowance for one of the jars or for that mysterious thing called the college fund, he would pay them interest. And when you're 5 or 6 years old, you're going to struggle with percentage math. So he would keep it simple. And he would pay a certain amount of money for every dollar. Now, he started out with some pretty high interest rates. In our family, we started with 1 penny per dollar per month.
Nice.
So when you got your allowance, you could, light it on fire and run around in the backyard like a sparkler, or you could take that money and put it in the Bank of Carol, and it would earn that 1 penny per dollar per month. And Dad was always there with the spreadsheet or the math or the calculator to show you how your wealth was growing with that money you'd invested in the Bank of Carol.
That's a great
and how was that for you, Carol? Did that work? Was that
Yes.
incentive enough?
It was, because it was two parts. It was one, it was dad was showing me how it worked. He would actually open up Microsoft Excel or whatever your spreadsheet favorite is, and he would punch in all of the numbers and I could watch all the math. And what he would also do is anytime I could come to mom and dad at 3 a.m, even though they'd rather I didn't. And I would say, I want all my money right now. And they would comply. They would give me, if it was $5.76, they would give me $5.76 right there. Mm-hmm. There was always this implicit trust, and there was never a run on the bank of dad, because there didn't need to be a run on the bank of dad.
Nice.
This was a teachable moment, right? You've got to develop faith and trust in the financial system, the banking system, and you might as well start that at home, because you're going to lose it as soon as you're an adult.
Yeah.
But the other side of that is that it's really a teachable moment. Your child is not only testing whether or not they can get their money when they want it. Okay, that test, you passed that test, but now you can say, hey, here it is. What are you going to do with it? This is awesome. All this money, all this opportunity. This must be really fun. What do you want to do with it? Mm-hmm. And now you can have a conversation.
Nice.
Carol, what was your first big expense that you remember spending that money on?
Oh, a Game Boy Color. It was 1998.
Game Boy Color, yeah.
Hell yeah. And I had gotten all the birthday checks, and I had enough allowance to not only afford the Game Boy Color, but to also afford Pokemon. So that was big.
Blue or red?
I think I got red. I don't totally remember anymore, because everybody would swap everything. Yeah.
Right. And Doug, how was that for you when your daughter came to you and was like, I want to buy a $100, $50 Game Boy system? Was that like, were you like hesitant, or you were like, okay, you earned it, you saved it, here you go?
We would have these conversations all the time, and they started when she was much younger than the age at which she wanted that Game Boy. So she had played this script many times by then. And at first the answer was, well, you're going to have to save your money for a really long time, or you're going to have to get a really good job to afford that. Mm-hmm. And so she would save her money for a really long time, or there would be broad hints to grandma and grandpa, and maybe they'd drop a fairly big birthday present on her that would give her the money she needed to do that. Mm-hmm. And then the important part is we go out and do it. Mm-hmm. And the whole point is to spend that money and then see how your emotions react, whether there's regret, right? Buyer's remorse, or whether it's everything you hoped it was, or how long the thrill lasts, or is it hard to take care of? Does it work well? We would just keep talking. Mm-hmm. And I think, Carol, we probably talked you through all the emotions to the point where you're just sick and tired of talking about the emotions. But
oh yeah,
but you did have a good feel for it.
I did. And what was nice about electronics in particular was there was the Game Boy Color, and then there was the Game Boy 2, and then there was the Game Boy 3, and then there was, there was Pokemon Blue and Red, and then there was Yellow, and then there was Silver, and then it kept getting higher and higher. Right. And so that was one more emotion for me to recognize as a kid, is that there's always going to be that next level. So how do you feel knowing that you just bought everything at this level and you can't afford the next level, even though you really want the next level? Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and we used that conversation whenever we could. If something would come up with clothing or some other toy, we'd say, well, why don't we see if we can find it at a garage sale or a thrift store, right, or maybe we can wait for a sale. We would work through all the various options, just like you will when you're bargain hunting as a teenager or an adult.
Right. Yeah, I think that's so important to keep that conversation of money just alive and open, and it's not a taboo subject like it is in so many families. I think it's so key to really be able to experience all those mistakes and all those issues and all those feelings and emotional attachment you get with buying things, and the regret and remorse you shared about.
Helping
so that's so
your
cool.
children process what they're going through, because they're not always aware, and you bring light to what they're experiencing. Also, the monthly check-in, to see how your money is growing, I think is such a great tip, because, it's one thing to invest in the bank of dad, but if as parents you're not consistently showing your
showing
child
them that growth,
the growth, they may not understand, they might lose interest, you forget, the accountability is not there, and also the teachable moment could get lost. So I love that you kept it continual month by month, so that the more you put in, you could see it growing over time.
I'll point out that we are not brilliant financial parents. We just tried a lot of stuff. Yeah, okay. Thanks a lot for agreeing so quickly with that, Carol.
I know.
No problem.
But we tried a lot of stuff, and whatever worked, we kept doing more of that. But it was also part of the lifestyle. I mean, you guys, when you look at your finances every month, you probably sit there and cackle gleefully and rub your hands together whenever your net worth goes up. And when it goes down, you're sad. And so you talk about those emotions and you adjust your plan. And we do the same thing with, a 6 or an 8 or 10-year-old in our house.
Right.
And over time, they learn to identify the emotions. They learn to understand how they're feeling. And then they can forecast that for the next really big toy that comes out, how well that's going to work.
Did you incorporate into this savings plan anything for like different categories of saving, like spend now, save for the future, give to charity? Did you differentiate any of that, or was it all just kind of very simplistically, this is your allowance and this is the growth of that allowance?
So there was nothing upfront for me. It was my pot of money. I could choose how I wanted to slice it up. And so I knew that I didn't have to spend everything on just one thing. I could pick and choose different things to spend. But what I wasn't completely aware of as a kid was what mom and dad were doing in the background with my allowance as well. And Dad, I wasn't sure if you want to talk about that.
We sat down, Carol, one day, and we could see that her 8th birthday coming up, we could see that there was some major growth. I mean, she had really picked up a lot over the last year, and we could see that she was going through one of those growth spurts, not just physically, but emotionally and intellectually. And so we knew this was going to be a fairly big birthday. And we do what every parent does. We sit around and say, how can we stay in front of this? What else can we think of? What's the next level? How can we find out more ways to teach this stuff? And we came up with the idea of the kid 401k. And at the time, this was the year late 1999, early 2000. At the time, the military was just making a 401k available to service members. This seems like old hat.
Dinosaurs.
Everybody should have a 401k. Yeah, dinosaurs, right? But at the time, this is a big deal for the military. And so we said, hey, we should have a kid 401k. And the idea we came up with was that we would put money into the 401k from her allowance and mandatory contributions, right? And then that would be invested very aggressively and successfully, of course. But the goal was that at age 16, this is an 8-year-old now, so age 16 is a lifetime away. But at age 16, she'd have enough money in that kid 401k to buy a car. And back then, the number was $5,000. Now, that's not going to put you in a BMW, but it's going to put you in some kind of car and give you some kind of transportation. And when you're 8 years old, this is right up there with Warren Buffett and Bill Gates. And so I think
5,000.
I think the number was we were putting $3 a week a mandatory contribution into the kid 401k from your allowance, and we had some incredibly generous parental matches like $15, $16, $17.
There's a spreadsheet. We have that, yes.
We had to make the math work, and then the stock market was just awesome for 8 solid years. There were these incredible returns from the stock market to get to that 5,000. And this, when we wrote the book, we sat down and worked all the math and put a table in the book. And so, everybody can follow along and adjust the numbers on your spreadsheet for your family for modern third millennium dollars. But when we did that, it turned out that not only was the kid 401k a good way to teach deferred gratification, but I think you're going to have to take over here, Carol. I think it made you feel like you had the power. Is that about right?
It did, because a lot of people view a car as a form of independence. You can finally get out of the house whenever you want. You can come home whenever you want. We're going to ignore the curfew rules for a moment, but you could largely do what you wanted to do. But it was also, it was also a note of freedom that it was my money. This wasn't mom and dad's purse strings. This wasn't grandma and grandpa's checks. It wasn't like I was relying on anybody else. This was all my money, and I had earned it all. Now, granted, we're not going to talk about the fact that it was an allowance, but it was my money that it was mine. And so that was a big part of the financial freedom, was understanding that we all talk about the FIRE movement, financial independence, understanding what that independence feels like and how sweet that feeling is.
And the example that we ended up seeing, that, again, we were not brilliant. We just came up with an idea and ran with it, and we never saw some of the unintended side effects. But one of the unintended side effects was sitting around the 12-year-olds one day, listening to the trash talk. You might be familiar with the competitiveness of middle school girls. And one of them said,
Hasn't changed.
When I'm 16 years old, my dad's going to buy me a Cadillac. And the other 12-year-old said, well, when I'm 16 years old, my dad's going to buy me a Mustang. And of course, you got to top that, right? So the other kid says, well, when I'm 16, my dad's going to buy me a Hummer. And I'm perking up because I can't wait to see how this punchline's going to end. And Carol says, when I'm 16 years old, I'm going to have the bank, the kid 401k, and I'm going to have $5,000 and I'm going to buy any car I want.
Nice.
And it stopped the whole discussion in their tracks. Now, the unintended side effect was about 3 weeks later, a bunch of the parents came back to me and said, tell me more about this 401k thing you've got going on in your family. But the whole point is, where does one get the money for that?
Right.
And you see down the road that when your kids turn into teenagers, you're going to probably have to find some kind of transportation for them just so that they learn how to drive before they leave high school.
Right.
And as part of that, you're going to probably buy a fairly budget priced car. You're probably going to find some way to spend some money on them to give them that transportation they need.
Mm-hmm.
So we just started at the age of 8 and pretty much gave that management of that money over to the kid 401k and talked about it for 8 years, so that when the time finally came for her to have that car, it was that money that had been there all along, that we've been growing and saving for all along, and it was finally available to you.
I love that. Now
Tell them what you did with the car,
Oh.
what you did with the fund at age 16, Carol.
Yeah.
So you guys are probably
big
aware
match?
of the fact. Oh yeah. So we call the joke door number 3 in the family. You've probably seen that with toddlers, where you give them 2 options and then they come up with a third option.
Uh-huh.
And so that was what
Yes.
Mom and Dad did, is they gave me 2 options. They said, here's your 401k. You can buy whatever car you want. You can buy this car or this car. And I came back with door number 3 when I was about 14 years old. It's a couple years out from when the kid 401k is fully matured. And Mom and Dad had the family car. It was an old 93 Taurus at the time. It was about to fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were seriously looking at a hot new Toyota Prius, because, Priuses were all their age back then.
Yep.
And they were kind of fumbling on the price tag, because this was going to be the most expensive used car they'd ever bought. The car was only a couple years old at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't realize this, but I'd actually tipped the scale. I said, hey, Mom, Dad, if I gave you my $5,000 from the kid 401k, can I drive the car too? Like, can I be the one that primarily gets to drive the car? And then when I go off to college, you just give me my money back? Like, oh.
So here's a 15-and-a-half-year-old offering an equity share in a lease with a buyout at college. You gotta reward that initiative.
Yeah, for sure. Also,
I
it's
had
a
no
little
idea what a lease was,
nerve-wracking to
though.
have a new
Yeah.
driver driving your new car.
Well, it was 2 years old, and if you are going to turn over control of a vehicle to a brand new driver, a Prius is an awesome vehicle to do it with, because it's all drive-by-wire. There's only a couple of controls to worry about, and you actually were a very good steward of that car for the time you had it.
Well, see, that's the thing that we didn't mention, was that there was a penalty attached. So if I did get into any kind of damage with the car, that was taken out of my $5,000 deposit.
Oh,
The
that's
fine
good.
print from the Bank of Dead.
Yeah,
That's right. Well, just like
rule.
the lease at the car dealers, right?
Right,
If there's
right,
excessive wear and tear.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm curious, and I don't want to spend too much time here, but was this like a custodial account, or this is just a specific portion of your your 401k that you allocated? This is Carol's money, and it's going to grow to this, and I'm going to tell her how much it's grown.
You're giving me and my spouse a lot more credit than we're actually due. We just knew that when she turned 16 years old in 2008 that we'd have to cough up $5,000.
Oh, okay,
so
got
we
it,
made sure.
got it.
We made sure.
Okay.
Now, all the spreadsheets, all the other stuff in the background, that kid 401k was doing awesome.
Okay.
But I also knew that I had this significant financial obligation coming due, and I needed to set some money aside in a CD.
Got it.
My CD was not earning anywhere near what the 401k for the Carol account was actually earning.
And Carol, you were sat down at 8 years old, and you were saying, hey, do you want to contribute $3 a week in order to make this happen? At 16, you're going to get a $5,000 car.
It wasn't really said that way. It was said, hey, you're going to be getting an extra $3 a week in allowance. I'm just like, yes. And they're like, but you're not going to see it. What? We're going to put that money into a 401k. A what?
Nice.
Well, a 401k is, and off goes a lesson from there.
Right,
They
right.
got my attention. I'm getting $3, but I never get the $3. Wait, how does that even work?
And did you immediately be like, okay, you were just like, okay, whatever, and then a few years later you kind of started understanding it?
Right, exactly. And so when you're 8 years old, you heard the lesson, you listen to the teacher, and it's in there somewhere along your forehead, but you didn't actually absorb it. And
Right.
as the years went by and I started understanding more and more about investments and savings accounts and different kinds of banking methods, that's when it started to sink in.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll point out that you're 8.5 years old, and every month Dad is coming to you saying, this is how much is in your checking account. This is how much is in your Bank of Carol CDs at a penny per month per dollar.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how much is in your Bank of Carol 401k for when you're 16 years old. So
Wow.
we'll do a financial review every month.
I love that. I really do. And
yeah.
especially at the young age, kids are not really capable of making that decision of thinking long term. So as the parent, it's your role to kind of walk them through that and be like, this is what we're doing, not do you want to do this? Because I would venture to guess most 8-year-olds would be like, nah, I'll take it now.
I know a lot of 20-year-olds who struggle with that too, and I was a proud member of that group of people.
Yeah.
Awesome. I know that fast forwarding a little bit, maybe, you also started a Roth IRA at a fairly young age, Carol. I'm sure Doug helped you do that. A lot of parents ask me about Roth IRAs, so if you want to just quickly give like an overview of the Roth IRA and how that helped and why you chose that vehicle.
The minimum legal working age in the state of Hawaii is 14, and at that time you can only work a maximum of 4 hours a week. So it's really not much of a paycheck, but it's a paycheck. And the difficult part about an IRA when you're 14 years old is that it has to be in a custodial setup. And so, yes, it is my IRA, but we had to find a bank that would let it have the IRA in my name as well as my parents' name. And so at the time, the only bank that would do that was T. Rowe Price. And so when I finally turned 18, we moved that IRA from T. Rowe Price to the family bank. But at the time, that was all that was available.
Fidelity Investments, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Now as a family, we're all in Fidelity. And so that's a little bit what we prefer. But at the time, it was just, we chose T. Rowe Price because that's where what was available for a 14-year-old. And for the money for my job, all of that money would go right into my Roth IRA. I had an allowance, and I was living within the means of that allowance. And so, I had all of my clothes were taken care of. I actually had a little bit of gas money from mom and dad so that I'd be able to drive to and from work and school. I had a little bit of spending cash on the side, just for entertainment purposes, but that was all out of my allowance.
What was your job at 14?
So there's an after-school math, reading, and Japanese language center called Kumon. Some people call it Kumon,
myself.
depending on where you live. And I had started when I was about 6 years old. I actually was struggling with subtraction at the time and did not intend to make it a lifelong thing, but I did the entire math program between ages 6 and 16. And as I was entering my teenage years, the lead instructor at the program was looking at me and thinking, well, she knows the math program. I can't get this kind of training for any kind of teenager. Right. It would be really nice if she would come and work for us because she knows all this. And she knows the kid's perspective because she was that kid. And so there wasn't really a job interview. It was, hey, you're coming up on 14. Do you want to work? Yeah, nice. I can work. I'll take a job. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So despite getting your weekly allowance and, having everything you needed for basically the lifestyle you wanted to live at the time, to go out with friends and so forth, you still chose to take a job at that age. What was the reasoning there? Did your parents encourage you towards a job, or was it, purely your desire to go out and start working?
It was a little bit of both. It was mainly, the Circmobile. Once again, that was a very powerful factor. I knew I needed to get a job and I needed to start somewhere. And I had kind of sort of known that you need to have some kind of job experience as a teenager, because coming out of college, you can't just do it on a degree alone. You have to have that understanding of how to work in corporate America and understand what it is to actually be an employee. And so to start as a teenager was going to be a huge advantage. I could say that I worked at this job for, 4 years before I went to college. And then when I came back in the summers, I would come in every once in a while. So that would show that I had longevity and I had consistency at a company. And so then, when I was, go ahead, Dad.
I was going to say she did have good role models too. The middle school teachers pushed them pretty hard, and Miss Amy was dropping a lot of broad hints for about 2 years about you working for her at 14 years of age, because you were going to solve a lot of her problems working for her, right?
Oh yes, because you can't train teenagers in the way that you can someone who's grown up in that program, because they just know a little bit better.
Right.
And so that was the whole incentive, was to have that job, but also to be able to carry that experience forward, not just through high school, but through college and through post-college, whatever it was that I decided to work in one day.
I'm impressed that you had that foresight, that a track record with an employer is a necessary life skill. Because honestly speaking, for me, I don't think I hit that realization until I graduated college and was looking for a job and realized, oh, gee, nobody wants to hire me because I have no experience. I got straight A's. I did everything college said I needed to do. I'm summa cum laude, but nobody wants to hire me because I have no experience. And that's when the light bulb went off in my head, and I thought, boy, I wish back in high school and throughout college that I had been at least doing something part-time so that I had a track record. So it's not necessarily something most young people think about, and even young adults who are going through the school system, they don't even realize it until they actually graduate college. So the fact that you had that awareness beforehand speaks a lot to how, your parents educated you about the importance of that, and I guess your awareness from teachers and just forward thinking.
And I want to
I'll add some.
I have to give some credit to the public school system as well in Hawaii, because one of the things they did was I did a lot of summer school. And part of that was in the early years, it was because mom and dad had to work. But in the later years, it was because I actually did enjoy summer school as kind of like a structure to doing some different things that I couldn't do during the school year. And at the time, summer school wasn't just about the people who had failed out classes. It was also you could take certain classes for high school in summer school, and then you wouldn't have to take them during the normal high school year.
Oh, nice.
So then that meant that I spent less time in school, and then I could spend more time at my job so I could get more money and I could have more free time. And it was all a cascading thing. But one of the things that the state of Hawaii did was they had frequently making us kids go into the Department of Labor Bureau of Statistics and look up, hey, what kind of jobs do you want to do in the future? And they would tell you, the median salary, the average salary, the highest salary, and they'd also say your requirements must have a bachelor's degree, must have this kind of certification, and oh, by the way, must have 2 years working experience. Huh? What is that? And that's where you would have to do internships. That's where, if you're in the medical field, you would have to do residencies. And so I really give that to credit to the public school system for making us actually go into that and figure that out. Wow. This was the days before LinkedIn, a little bit different. You couldn't go into LinkedIn and see all the different job postings.
I will point out there's some other practicalities that as a parent, you can work on this at home. And ever since Carol could remember, whenever she came up with some consumer lust for some toy or some other thing, we would say, well, you'll have to have a really good job to afford that, or you'll have to save your money for a really long time. So she was thinking for many years that really good job needed to come up. And when somebody came along and offered her a job at $7 an hour, that was a really good job when you're 14 years old. So that helps a lot. The other advantage with the Roth IRA issue is that we used every bit of income that we could accredit toward her. When she was raised, she was getting side jobs, mowing the lawn, taking care of neighbors' pets, whatever she did. If we could say, well, that's income that she's earned, then we would put that into a Roth IRA. And I don't know if you remember this, Carol, but you and I sat down one time and we had a conversation about this is too important to screw up.
Yeah.
And then we did the spreadsheet on what happens when you start contributing to a Roth IRA when you're 14 years old and how it looks today when you're 27 years old. And it's a big change.
And that's actually a good thing for kids. And when they say, hey, why do I have to learn how to do all this graphing in elementary school? It's like, well, when you see the compounding interest graph, that actually really helps if you understand how graphing works in the first place.
Yeah.
Yep.
And when you start at such a young age, I mean, that's just the compound growth, when you're 60 years old, it's going to be 100 times what you put in or whatever. It's crazy.
So for the parents who are listeners on this show and are perhaps trying to think about opening a Roth IRA for their children and unsure of what qualifies for income that they can count towards their children's Roth IRA, it is possible to do something like dog walking or mowing lawns, and you can put that in a Roth IRA. And how do you put that on paper? Is that something, end of the year you submit taxes for them and say, they were
the best way to document.
Or...
Yep. The best way to document that is with a simple income tax return. And it all depends on where their income is coming from. In Carol's case, she had W-2 employment, and a lot of W-2 employment is withholding. So just to get that money back at the end of the year on your income tax return, you have to file an income tax return. So we would add all the income that she had earned from all the little jobs she had done. And earned income is helping mom and dad manage a rental property. It's helping around the house and whatever you can come up with. And you can document it in various ways. The income tax return is absolutely sufficient. That's all you need to do is declare the earned income on the income tax return. I have never heard of the IRS coming down and asking anybody any questions about that. However, you can also keep records if you have something in Quicken that shows, I paid my kid $15 to wash the car or whatever the going rate for car washing is in your family. That's evidence too. That's more than sufficient, even if it's just written down in a notebook. Yep. I think parents worry too much about the documentation side of it, where I think the more important concern is making sure that money gets shoved down to the kids' earned income levels so that they can put that into their Roth IRA.
Right.
We're even debating right now how much you pay an 11-week-old baby to be a model for a blog. It turns out bloggers have answered this question for a while. It turns out
we've done it ourselves. At 0 years old,
go.
we started a Roth IRA for our eldest son, and at
there you go.
At 3 years old, I think he had like $3,000 in his Roth IRA, and I calculated when he's 59 and a half, this is going to be, at a 7% return, this is going to be $300,000. This $3,000 if we don't put another penny towards it, and that's all tax-free growth that he can just take out and spend without any taxes. It's crazy.
And well done, sir. Well done.
He is a.
And we 1099 missed him just to be safe, baby model. And it was under $600, so we didn't even have to do a 1099 miss, but we were just like, let's play it safe, we'll do that. We didn't have to do a tax return because it was under the threshold, but we're like, let's have the documentation, be safe. And we
like
did it through a CPA.
Baby modeling through our online businesses and our real estate businesses.
Yeah, we use his picture all the time in my blog, so we pay him a certain amount for every picture, and Yeah, so that's awesome. Yeah, Roth IRAs are so powerful too because they're not counted towards your assets as a child who's applying for colleges. It's if you have a 529 account that's been growing and growing, they're like, oh, you have $500,000 in your 529. You don't need any financial aid or anything like that. But as opposed to Roth IRA, which is all retirement based, it's not for education, so that's not counted against you. What other perks are there for a Roth IRA versus another vehicle?
I was just impressed with the idea that you had a Roth IRA. And I think, Carol, you took a tremendous amount of financial security from knowing that you had something that most other people did not.
I did. And it was one of those things where the earliest form of my emergency fund was my Roth IRA. Not something that you can do in your 20s, but there's no rules when you're in your teens because no one's done that. So that was something that I knew that if I got into trouble in college and for some reason I needed money right now, I could do that. But that situation never came to because it was just college.
Right.
So
and what a lot of people don't know is that you can withdraw any contributions you put into your Roth IRA with penalty free. So you put in $5,000, you can take out that $5,000. There's no penalty on it. So you can kind of use it as an emergency savings in that way and then just let it grow. And those earnings you can't really touch without a penalty. But whatever you put in, you can withdraw. So it's just like, don't hold back. Just put the money in, let it start growing. Yeah. Anyway, exactly. I love the Roth IRA.
That was better than that was the other thing was mom and dad set me up with understanding a CD ladder. So I did have a 5-year set of CDs where once I had enough money, I had maybe, it must have been $200 at a time. So 1 year, $200. Yeah. Second year was $200. Third year was $200. Fourth year was $200. Fifth year was $200. And then when the 1 year came to maturity, that turned into a 5-year. And then when the 2 year came to maturity, that became a 5-year. And the 3 year came to maturity, that became a 5-year. And you just keep making 5 years. And so you just climb up the ladder of time as time goes on. But now that I'm in my late 20s, CD ladder is a little bit restrictive. We actually pulled a bunch of ladders out of our bank last week. Turned out there's a COVID-19 deal going on where you can withdraw your CDs penalty free.
I did see that.
So pulled our CDs out of our bank so that we could throw those into the stock market. And we're glad we did because of the returns that have come back just this week alone.
Wow. Yeah.
So far.
There
will be volatility.
We're just getting started, but yes.
So talking about COVID, Doug, you've now kind of lived through 3 recessions in your retirement, right? Can you share a little bit about that? A lot of people are, they're scared to pull the plug on retiring because of all the ups and downs and stuff. You lived through 3 recessions. Can you just share a little bit about that?
The first, when we retired in 2002, the first recession was the internet recession, and I retired in June only to watch the stock market drop another 15% before it bottomed out in October. Not that we knew that was the bottom. By then, we were convinced the stock market was going to zero. And that led to some intense discussions about our asset allocation between my spouse and me, but we got through it. We knew the 4% safe withdrawal rate was going to give us that high probability of making it for 30 years. And plan B, when you've just retired, is maybe you'll get a job. And I'll point out, when you get into a recession like that, after you've quit your main job, you don't need a 40-hour-a-week job for plan B. All you need is maybe 5 or 10 hours a week. And those jobs in a recession, those jobs are everywhere because employers need somebody to work part-time. They can't afford a full-time employee.
How much was 4% to you at that time?
4% was $60,000 a year.
Okay.
So we were looking at having to spend $60,000 a year in 2002. That's back when, $60,000 was a lot of money. But that money was going to have to come out as we're watching our stock market portfolio also shrivel up from the last few gasps of the recession. And well, it was 60 and it was going to be 60 and it was going to be 60. The question was, how much were you going to withdraw? Was it going to be 4%, 5%, or 6%?
Got
right?
it, yeah.
Yeah. That's tough to face. And the math of the 4% withdrawal rate, everybody's very mathematical and logical when the market is going up. And you can appreciate this math when you're earning more money every year. But when a recession starts, your emotions take over and hijack all that math and logic. So we looked at that and we knew plan B was that job. But eventually the recession bottomed out and started coming back up and things recovered. By 2007, we were looking, our asset grew very fast. We had an asset allocation of greater than 90% in equities because I had a little bit of pension money and because we knew that we could leave that in there if we could tolerate the volatility. And by 2007, I remember commenting to my spouse one night that I'd looked at our numbers and our portfolio was just nuts. These numbers were so high, it was ridiculous. And it was because of the growth and also because that is what turned out to be the peak. And a few short months later, the entire financial system locked up and almost failed. I found, and after reading the history books, after reading what was going on and having lived through the 2008, 2009 recession, I find that far more terrifying to the economy and to the banking system than anything we're going through today. We will get through this today. As long as I don't get an infection, I will probably be fine financially. And I'm far more worried in 2008 and 2009 than I am today. I'll tell you, third recession, you don't get any better necessarily emotionally at getting through the recession, but you develop more coping skills. I remember at one point in 2009, I looked at a 401k statement, the equivalent for the thrift savings plan for the military. And I said, this is nuts. This is ridiculous. I mean, it was crazy in 2007 because it was crazy high. And in 2009, it was ridiculously low because, again, the stock market was going to go to zero. And it all recovered. And the same thing today, we just don't look at our finances every week. Maybe we look at them once a month or every couple of months, or mostly when I get a question from a reader like, hey, how you doing? And Carol, I'm sure you and your spouse are looking at your statements a lot because you're thinking about dumping more money into the market, right?
We've been trying to pull every single penny. Yeah, so we're trying not to touch our emergency fund. It's so tempting to touch our emergency fund. But we're trying not to. Exactly. So we're not touching the emergency fund. Exactly. So we're not touching the emergency fund. Believe it or not, I'm actually already getting VA compensation. I had a couple of injuries in the Navy, so we're not touching that either. That's also that's what's keeping the emergency fund going as well. But every other penny that we can find that we haven't spent on groceries or entertainment in-house, we're trying to put that into the stock market as fast as we can. Because we know, I mean, even though my husband and I haven't been invested in the dot-com crash, even though we were just barely invested into the recession, because I did have a couple of mutual funds at the time, this is the first time we've had major money to put in and major money that we could actually play around with in the stock market. So we want to get it in because we know that eventually we're all going to recover. Yeah, eventually we're all going to go back to work. Eventually we're all going to be able to go and spend our money on the leisures and do the air travel that we want to do. And that's when the stock market is going to start to take off again. Now, it's not going to look like the stock market used to be. The companies that are going to be making up the S&P 500 are going to be different, but the S&P 500 is still going to exist. And so will the rest of the stock market. It's not going to be the same conglomerate of companies we saw at the beginning of COVID-19, but there's going to be a few new businesses and there's still going to be an active economy when we come out.
Right.
It'll get down to the S&P 379 before we get back up to 500. But your point is well made. We don't know when this recession is going to end. We don't know how bad it's going to get, but we know over the long term it's going to get better. And we also know over the long term that having an asset allocation and investing regularly and being patient, and that's the hard part, is being patient. It's the emotions.
Right. Did you think you're going to retire earlier than your father?
Yes and no. We have different definitions of retirement. So the thing about a military retirement is that you can retire at 20 years. That's the minimum. And at 20 years, you can leave your uniform behind and you will get a pension for the rest of your life. And you can do that all the way up to the 30-year mark. You can leave at 30 years instead. In some cases, especially for folks that are generals or admirals, they can leave at 40-year marks or later. But for me, I don't know how long I'm going to stay in the military yet. You know, right now I've only done barely 6 years and I have had enough money saved up. I have enough of a portfolio started that technically I don't need to work full time anymore. Now I could stay in the military. I could stick to active duty, but I also know, and you know, my husband and I wanted to have a family and we know how hard it is when you have two people on active duty that are trying to raise a kid, because I was that kid and my parents were those active duty parents. And so it was a very natural shift for me to go from active duty to reserves because not only was I there for the family and was I more the stay-at-home mom, but in times like this, when all the kids are home anyway, it's actually been very convenient to only have one person working versus two people trying to telework out of the house.
Right.
And then the other thing is that I don't have to stay in for the pension because I have my portfolio and because my portfolio can sustain me. I don't have to stay in for 20 years in the military. So I don't feel like I'm forced into taking that next job, whether or not I actually want to do that next job. A big challenge for dual military couples is getting assigned together. Are we going to be able to find jobs where we can both go to San Diego, for example, or both go to Bremerton, Washington? There's a lot of cases where, or Hawaii, yes. Not everybody likes Hawaii, but Hawaii is another one. And that's a challenge for a lot of families is, he will have to go to, let's say, MacDill Air Force Base, and she will have to go to Travis Air Force Base because there's no way that their careers will match up. So where are the kids going to go? Where are the pets going to go? What's going to happen? And so it was not exactly writing on the wall, but it was certainly one of those ways to reduce the risk of us having to live apart as a family. Now, for my husband, he got a really cool job here at Naval Postgraduate School. He's getting his master's degree. The military is paying for him to get his master's degree right now.
That's
So
awesome.
that was awesome.
Well, as long as he sticks around for 3 years of active duty afterward.
Right. And that's, it's just like the bonuses all over again.
Yeah.
In the military, a lot of them have strings attached. If you want a $15,000 bonus, you got to stick around for 2 more years. If you want a $60,000 bonus, you got to stick around for 4 more years, and so on and so forth. What happens if you're injured? What happens if you run into the law? What if some undetermined situation comes up and you have to give that money back? What if you don't have that money to give back?
Right. So, Carol, I have a question for you. You just had a daughter. Are you going to encourage her to go this military route? You have 2 generations of military at this point. Maybe there's longer. I don't know the lineage here.
That's a funny story. Mom and Dad always said never make the military.
Now.
Yeah, it's funny now. Mom and Dad always said never make the military a family business. And when I was all the way up until age 13, I never wanted to be in the military myself because I could see, even when Dad was still working in the military, there were days where he just had a rough day. He'd come home and he's still wearing his mad face or his Navy face or whatever it was that day. That voice of authority that wasn't ready to see the kids yet. And it was not until I was about 13 years old. Mom and Dad had a classmate that was working at the Naval Academy. She was assigned to the Naval Academy. And we went to go and visit, and I fell in love with the campus. It was, okay, I'm going to do Navy. I'm going to do 40 years. I'm going to become a 4-star admiral. I want to do this. My parents said, okay, wait a minute. This is a service academy. You might not exactly know what you're getting yourself into as a service academy. This is, when you talk about frugality versus deprivation, this could err on the side of deprivation when you think about it. Like, no, I want to do this. And they're like, okay, well, let's check all your options first. And that's when we looked into things like ROTC. That's when we looked into, there's different kinds of military programs where you actually finish out professional degrees before you enter the military. So the medical profession, for example, you actually go and you get your degree as a doctor, and then you come and work into the military. And so after a while, we figured out that maybe I don't want to go into a service academy necessarily, but I did like the idea, especially when the recession hit in high school, that the Navy would pay for college through an ROTC scholarship. And then I would work for them for at least 8 years afterwards. So I had a guaranteed job for almost a decade that would ride out most of the recession. And oh, by the way, I have college paid for, so I wouldn't have any student loans.
That's awesome.
And so for our family, the last thing we intended for me was to be in the military, but here we are. And the last thing we intend for my daughter to do is to be in the military. And it's all going to be up to her. There's not going to be pressure on her to join the military, but of course she's going to have 1, 2, technically 3 generations if the great-grandparents are still alive to be able to give her an idea, a realistic opinion of what she could be getting herself into.
And
I've got a whole new generation for my sea stories. I think we'll make this work.
Oh, yes.
And when it comes to raising your child with, financial background and principles, I know you guys are writing the book about it, and I'm sure the book differs from your own upbringing. What are some major differences that you plan to initiate with your daughter?
Oh, a lot of it has to do with technology. Things have changed since, I was being raised in I'm a millennial. So I was raised in the late 90s, the early 2000s. I was raised through the Great Recession. But with my daughter, she's going to be raised through, she's come into the world at the same time as a pandemic. She's going to enter the world at the same time a recession is happening. And so that's going to give her a different perspective. When 9/11 happened, that was a large defining moment for my childhood, but who knows what that's going to be in the future for her.
Right.
And then when it comes to technology, iPhones didn't even come out until I was in high school. And that was a huge game changer for the world.
Right.
And, when I was a kid, I was born in 1992, the internet was just barely getting started. And now she's in a world where people can't imagine life without smartphones and life without the internet. So that's going to be the big thing, is going to be to take the same basic lessons, understanding what cash is and understanding what a checking account is, but then applying it to the modern day, you know, instead of a debit card, maybe it's going to be whatever the next generation smart chip is and a phone or whatever new device they come out with.
Awesome.
And we did a considerable amount of editing in the book to explain how we would do it if we were starting today. You know, a big tech update on how we would have done it today if we weren't doing it 20 years ago.
When does the book come out?
We think it's going to be
probably
summer.
May or June. Yeah. May or June.
Oh, exciting.
We're setting the cover design and doing a formatting for the ebook now. And Carol and I are recording the audiobook now. So we'll have all those pieces put together there for May or June.
I love that. I love that you're working on this project together. It's a passion that you both share. You know, you've been able to instill this incredible knowledge in your daughter, and the two of you are working together to share it with the world, and that's fantastic.
Yeah, awesome. I really love so much of what you shared, Doug, Carol, both of you, and just like seeing the unity of your message here, and just how well it's worked, and laying out this outline of how you guys were able to teach all this within this family. Awesome. So Doug and Carol, thank you so much. What is the best way for people to reach out and get in touch with you guys?
Dad, you first.
The Military Guide, or Doug Nordman. I've been doing this for a decade now, so I'm pretty highly ranked in those search engine terms. Carol?
For me, I'm just getting started. We have a website that we're working on called childbuyer.com. So child, financial independence, retire early, childbuyer.com. And so I'm at carol@childbuyer.com, and I'm running around Facebook as well. My name is just as it is on Facebook.
Awesome. Doug, Carol, thank you so much for being on the show. Yeah, have a good one.
This is the kind of people we want to reach. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.